Now, I know it's been a minute since I've posted, but I have so much to talk about. But in today's video, I want to stay focused on exactly what is going on here. There is a lot of FOMO. There is a lot of hysteria taking place. And I also want to talk through my portfolio really quick. As you guys can see here, we started with just under $32,000 in May, now pushing near $40,000. When we compare that to the indices, obviously you guys can see here, I'm underperforming. We're just under 9% returns in a matter of about 7 months. Now, normally this would be phenomenal. People would be thrilled to get nearly a 9% rate of return in a 7-month period, which is basically on pace for what the market normally does. And there are dividends on their way as well. That's not being contributed to this 8.7%. So I'm sure it's closer to 9% as of right now. Now, before you turn off the channel and say that, well, you're underperforming, why am I gonna sit here and watch the channel? I have 56% of my allocation sitting in cash, meaning that the limited stock exposure that I have been massive outperformers. I believe cash is going to be king going into 2025. I want to track my rate of return versus what the market's doing, because if I don't start outperforming, then the obvious answer is just start putting in an index, set it and forget it, because the amount of time that I'm putting in on this channel and the amount of time I'm putting in on my holdings, I could just be buying a broadly diversified index and outperforming without all the added stress. Now, I have sold most of my big gainers, which have been PayPal, Cisco Systems, and a few miscellaneous other ones. The one that I jumped back into was Pfizer, sitting right around $25 a share currently. And this is a stock that's probably going to have some more headwinds going forward. But I want to talk about why I'm sitting on so much cash and the opportunity that I see ahead, because I am focused on even building more cash. Now, many savvy investors have stated, do not try timing the market and do not look at macroeconomics. But oddly enough, one of the best timers in this market has been Warren Buffett. And as of right now, Warren Buffett is sitting on over $325 billion of cash. The most bullish investor on Wall Street is sitting on more cash than he's ever sat on. In fact, the last time Buffett has been sitting on this type of cash was when he had to physically bail out the banks during the financial crisis, which is telling me that 2025 could be an ugly picture here. When I look at valuations and I look at the macro backdrop here, I don't see a lot of positive headlines coming through. I think there's a lot of euphoric behavior in this market that is reaching extreme levels. Let's talk about the banking system really quick. Banks are sitting on a tremendous amount of unrealized losses, one from paper notes and two from commercial real estate that's coming around the corner that needs to be refinanced, and nobody knows how this is really going to play out. Well, maybe one person knows. In fact, Goldman Sachs is predicting that the S&P 500 will deliver 3% annualized rate of returns going forward over the next 10 years because of how much we're pulling forward. And I tend to think that this could absolutely be a problem when I'm looking at valuations across the board. When we think about psychology of the market, this is something we've seen numerous times. Everything feels great, nothing can stop us, and then all of a sudden something random happens that we didn't see coming. I'm trying to point out the picture here, guys, that there are many things that could come. I just showed you banking losses. We have multiple wars taking place. Trump and Kamala we're bringing to the table, I believe, are inflationary, and I do think they are going to threaten the labor markets. But with all that being said, I do believe we are in euphoria currently. This is the top of the market in my personal opinion. I believe we're going to have a Santa Claus rally come in December. First, a pullback in the first 2 weeks of December, but as we get into the latter part of December, we get through Christmas and New Year's, I do, however, believe we will put in the top in this market. I believe this will be symbolic for 2025, meaning that if we look at what January has kind of signaled in the past, if we have a negative January, it could mean that we could have a rough 2025. So that's something to keep your eye on. Price action is going to be very volatile. As we get into January, in my personal opinion, I think it'll be light volume in December. We're going to have probably a small pullback here very soon. We'll have the Santa Claus rally, but as we get into January, we need to pay attention to market functionality. Now, the thing is this, I'm personally not copying Buffett. I honestly don't see any substantial deals out there. In fact, when I go to my portfolio and I take a look at US small caps, this is actually cybersecurity companies that are a little bit more higher risk in my opinion, but the valuations seem pretty appropriate. I have a few US large cap companies, mainly in the pharmaceutical industry, which is going to leave the cash allocation to keep growing here for me. I definitely think we could see a rough few years here. I love the policies that are coming to the table from President Trump. I do think this will strengthen our economy and strengthen the country long term. But over the next 2 to 3 years, I do think there's going to be some horrible headwinds, and I think valuations are going to contract. And it's very, very concentrated, which is also a problem. Now, a lot of people are stating that this market is broadening, and that is absolutely true, but I don't think it's going to be long-lived. Nvidia did account for 25% of the S&P 500's 17% gain in 2024. Let that sink in a little bit. One company contributed the majority of this move. And as you guys can see here, I did not have exposure to Nvidia because I would have outperformed considering that the concentration would have been there and would have probably propped up my portfolio much stronger than it is. Now, just to put some things in perspective and the euphoric state that we're currently in, Bitcoin has skyrocketed to 156% on the year because President Trump is very pro Bitcoin, as it seems, and everybody is front running this, and there's only one thing that makes Bitcoin go up: the fact that somebody is actually willing to pay more than the next person. Now, I obviously see some use case for Bitcoin here. There's a limited amount, there is some functionality with it, but I want to remind people that Bitcoin was created off of evil things to hide transactions for sex trafficking, money laundering, drug deals, and a lot of different things that take place on this black market. The thing is Bitcoin's not backed by anything. It's only backed by the belief that somebody's willing to pay more than you. Then we take a look at the historic valuation of this market, sitting at 30 times earnings and about 25 times forward earnings. Now, that 25 times forward earnings is a little sketchy because if we come in any light on the earnings going forward and we see a slowdown in the consumer, you are going to see a day of reckoning. I'm talking about a 30 to 40% decline in this market. We are trading at way too high valuations to not have any growth. And once the market sniffs this out, you can bet your bottom dollar we are going to see a whiplash of corrections and wealth being destroyed. Now, of course, this is all just my opinion, going over what I believe, looking over the fundamentals, looking over actually what's taking place in the overall market and the broadening that's taking place. If we look at the broadening that's taking place, it's a lot of companies that are either A, unprofitable, B, have been oversold or shorted, or C, are very, very speculative. But there is opportunities within that of good quality companies that are starting to present some interesting opportunities. So as much as I am bearish on the market overall going forward, I am bullish on some individual names that we'll get into in the next one. As always, guys, we will see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful day.